Hi guys, this is Bison, your host, and today's game is a masterpiece where you all are going to see six brilliant moves in this game, which literally turns a quiet position into a battlefield of sacrifices, tactics, and pure chess magic. So grab your popcorn, sit back, and watch how a normal opening explodes into one of the most beautiful attacking games you will ever see. Okay, so now d4, and this game starts with the English opening, and when black pushes g6, and then this complete setup is known as great snake variation because black pieces don't develop in a straight line. They literally slither, or we can say coil around the board like a snake when you can see black will start pushing these pawns. And now there is an aggressive line for black, which is h5 with the idea of h4. But here black goes for a6. Clearly he wants to push b5. And now here white can continue with this amazing move f4, starting a pawn avalanche. And let's suppose if e5, d takes e5, d takes e5, f takes e5. And let's suppose if he captured on e5, then knight takes e5, queen takes d8 check, king takes d8, and you can see black is slightly better due to these two powerful knights covering the important key squares of white. Okay, so let me go back to this move, which is So so instead of that, basically instead of capturing on e5, here the best move for white is to push this pawn further to f5, locking the position and targeting this pawn chain. And obviously black cannot capture on f5 due to the threat of knight takes f5. So that's why, let's suppose if he goes for h5 so that he can target this knight, but simply h4. And now you can see white is better due to the strong dominance of these pawns. But in the actual game, after the move a6, here white decides to develop this bishop to e3. Okay, so after that, h5, preparing to push h4, and to stop this, white can go for h4, but here again white can consider the move f4. And let's suppose if he attacks our knight, then simply knight to f1. And since black has this strong since white has this strong center, so to attack this, if black pushed c5, simply d takes c5, knight takes c5, bishop takes c5, d takes c5. And yes, white can exchange the queen, but before that, simply e5, attacking this knight. And if queen takes d1 check, simply rook takes d1, and after knight to d7, and you can see in the next move white can go for knight to e3, and again you can see white is better. Okay, so in the actual game, after h5, here white goes for f3. Okay, so now here white goes for c5. An interesting move. Basically, he wants to open this d file. And here one thing is clear, that black cannot push this pawn to d5 due to the threat of e5. So basically that's why, to stop this, he decides to just capture on c5. Okay, so now comes e5. Maybe he wants to place this knight on f4, and finally here white reroutes this knight to f2, and now here black must consider the move which is knight to f4, which you can see blockades this strong diagonal. And let's suppose if knight to d3, if he tries to attack this knight, simply bishop to h6, and by this you can see black maintains the dynamic equality. But in the actual game, after knight to f2, he goes for knight to f8, and that's a mistake because first of all it's too passive, and yes, he basically opens the diagonal of this light square bishop, as well as he also wants to reroute this knight to e6. But the problem with that move is, first of all, it underestimates the dynamic potential of white position, because we already know that white is improving his position, so black must stop white adjustment with the move like knight to f4, or maybe we can say black must stop white from what he wants to do, because you can see white has this strong diagonal. And basically, you can see now there are many opportunities for white to continue this game. And in this game here, basically white goes for a4. Clearly, you can see he wants to open the a file. So that's why to stop this, b4. And guys, this is the point from where this game becomes interesting, because as you can see, since this knight is attacked, so let's suppose if we go back to a2, or any or for example to any other square like uh, yeah, white can go there also, but then you can see black will simply go for a5, completely blocking the queen side, or we can say strengthening the pawn chain. And by this you can see this will close all the doors for white to attack the black position, and that will and you can see that will automatically makes the position equal. So that's why, keeping all of this in mind, in this position here white decides to sacrifice his knight by knight to d5. And he do this because after takes, yeah, so basically you can see this knight is targeting this queen, so white is forced to capture this. And after takes, now you can see this sacrifice creates two mobile connected pawns, or we can say passed pawns on the fifth rank, which controls these important squares, stopping the activity of black pieces as well as stopping this knight from coming to e6 square. So that's why now it's important for black to just break these two passed pawns, because you can see this is going to create some trouble to black in future. So that's why knight to e6 must be considered, so that he can break this strong pawn structure. But what if instead of capturing, if he pushed d6? If he pushed d6, that will be a mistake because of queen to d7. And you can see now this queen acts like a blockade between these two pawns, and you can see black will be better. But in the actual game, after this move, here black goes for f5. He basically ignores the threat of these two passed pawns which are created, and yes, he wants to push f4, but before that here white goes for d6. And yes, now this queen is attacked, so that's why queen to c6. And guys, as I said, this is not an ordinary game, and that is proved by the next move which white played in this position. And here in this position, white goes for the move bishop to b5. He sacrificed the bishop, and obviously since white is targeting this queen and this king, so black is forced to capture this bishop. And you can see after takes, uh, as you can see this queen and this rook is attacked, so black can only defend one at a time. And if this queen goes back, then obviously black will push white will push c6. So that's why here white decides to capture on b5. Okay, so after that, here black decides to attack this bishop, but simply rook at 1 goes to a7 with the idea of rook to e7 check. So to stop this, knight to d7. And guys, now comes brilliant move number 3. And now just pause the video and try to find the next move played by white. Okay, so let me give you a hint. Just look at the position of this black king. You can see here's the black king is in danger, so black will definitely go for castling. And if black somehow castled, then you can see this black rook on h8 will come into the game. And we have to stop this, because if this happens, then you can see there is not any way for white to continue the attack, because that's the main motive of chess. We have to attack the opponent king, so we have to find a forcing sequence. By this we can expose the black king. So that's why in this position here white decides to sacrifice his rook by rook takes c8 check. This is because after queen takes c8, now comes queen to d5, covering this g8 square so that black cannot castle. Okay, so now here black captured on f2 with a check. And guys, note one thing, that here white cannot capture this pawn by king takes f2. This is because that will be a huge blunder, because of queen takes c5 check, king to f1, queen to c1 check, king to f2, queen to d2 check. And you can see soon white will get checkmated. So that's why after this move he goes for king to f1. And since white is now threatening mate in 1, so to stop this, simply queen to e8. And guys, now comes another move, or we can say brilliant move number 4, which is rook to f7 check. And you can see his idea is simple. Basically, he wants to deflect the black queen from the 8th rank so that he can start pushing these pawns. And so simply black captured this, and now white gives a check from c8 square. And after this, queen goes to e8, d7. Okay, so guys, and now comes the brilliant move number 5, which is c6. And yes, I know that's a common sense move, but chess.com marked it as brilliant. So what can we do? And obviously black cannot capture this rook, because then no one can stop this pawn from promotion. So that's why here he goes for e4. And guys, let me tell you something. If you capture this f2 pawn, which obviously now comes in your mind, because now you can see there is no black queen, so white can capture this f2 pawn. But guys, if you captured on f2, this is completely losing for white, because just look at this position. Here black pieces are perfectly coordinated in such a way that you can see white is close to getting checkmated, because first of all black will give a check by e3, king to e2, so that black cannot push it further, but knight to f4 check, king to e1, knight takes g2 check, king to e2, knight to f4 check, king to e1, e2, c7. if white thinks that he is close to promotion. But guys, in this position here, black can finish this game in style with the move bishop to c3 check. And if you capture this bishop, which is obvious because of this promotion, then now comes knight to d3 check. The only move is either this or this. So let's suppose if it goes there, then simply e1 equal to queen check, king to c2, queen takes c3 check, king to b1, and finally queen to b2 checkmate. And guys, when I saw this first time, I swear it literally blew my mind. Just imagine, a single mistake by white leads to this devastating loss. So that's why after the move e4, after this move, he goes for c7. Okay guys, so after king to f7, and now comes the brilliant move number 5, which is queen takes e7 check. He simply gives up the queen. And after that he promotes to a new one. And guys, now you can see white can capture any of the pawns and this is winning, right? But no, you are wrong. If he captures the wrong pawn, which is this e2 pawn by king takes e2, that will be a huge blunder because of the move knight to f4. And if you can and you can see white has to lose the queen. And yeah, this is because after takes, simply knight takes g6, and you can see that will be over for white. So that's why after the move e2, here white captured the correct pawn, which is the f2 pawn. And after that, here black tries his last trick, which is bishop to e3 check. And again, white cannot capture this either this pawn or this bishop, because if he captured this bishop, then you can see black will promote. And if he captured this pawn, then simply knight to d4 fork. So that's why he goes for king to e1. And in this position, Nikolaidis resigned, because black has already used up all of his plans and tricks he had, and white has countered every one of them perfectly. Now black has nothing left. What a game, guys, what a game. And if you like this video, let me know in the comments. Like this video and I will see you in the next one. And if you guys watched till the end, then guys, you are awesome. And honestly, your comments motivates me a lot. Keep motivating me like that, and also you can give some suggestions if you think I should implement in my videos. I will definitely consider that. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.